So, if you think you or your child has ADHD, the next question is, what do I do? I'm sure you have Googled the symptoms a million times and you've read about the difference between attentive and inattentive type and combined type. And now you think, okay, I think it's me or I think it's my child. What is my next step? And a lot of people also call and ask, what is an ADHD assessment? So, the first thing that I always tell people is if you think your child, and I'm just going to use your child in this situation so that I don't have to keep on saying your child or you. So, if you think your child has ADHD, tell someone, a professional who knows them, and say, hey, I think they have ADHD. And those people would include a teacher, their pediatrician, or the school counselor, and just get some feedback. A lot of times, the professional is going to tell you exactly what they think. Like, yeah, I see those behaviors as well. And I think you may be onto something. I'm so glad you brought this up. Let's talk about it. Or they might say, actually, I've been conceptualizing all of this inattentive behavior as more of anxiety, and let's talk about that. Either way, it's really important that you let someone know when you think it because it actually starts a process of documentation, which can be really helpful down the line. It gives you some feedback, it gives you some peace of mind, and it also keeps you out of the Google rabbit hole. Like you could spend forever Googling if your child has ADHD. You might as well get a real perspective from someone who has been trained and knows your child. After you talk to someone, some therapists and some pediatricians are just going to give you a fill in the blank survey about your child's behaviors. They're going to ask questions on a scale of like 1 to 5 about their impulsivity, their forgetfulness, and other indicators of ADHD. And a lot of times they're going to give these exact same surveys to your child's teacher to see are they demonstrating these behaviors across multiple domains, like at home and in the classroom. They're also going to look at the results and then decide if your child does or does not meet criteria for ADHD. And then once they do that, that process starts. You know, okay, my child does have ADHD. My child doesn't have ADHD, and you know where to go from there. And you have someone on your team who's going to help lead you through that process. But a lot of times, what can also happen, and what I get phone calls about all the time, is that a therapist or a PCP doctor might tell you as a parent to go get an ADHD assessment for your child. And I want to explain to you why a professional would say, hey, go get an ADHD assessment. And that's just because sometimes ADHD is really, really hard to diagnose. Clinicians want to rule out all sorts of other possibilities so that we can say, like, yes, this is ADHD. It's definitely not anxiety, therefore it must be ADHD. Or it's definitely not a learning disability, so therefore it's ADHD. And a lot of times with teenagers or adults, one of the things we want to rule out is substance abuse because that can also look a lot like ADHD. So we want to make sure that it's not something else going on that looks like ADHD. And also, clinicians, and especially those that are prescribers, want to be extra thoughtful when they make a diagnosis of ADHD right now, because there really has been an increase in diagnosing ADHD across the country. And for prescribers in particular, they are often asked to then prescribe medication, and those are controlled substances in this country. And so they want to be really, really thoughtful before they say, yes, this person has ADHD, and here's a prescription that goes along with it. Sometimes a PCP or a therapist will say, you need to go get an ADHD assessment. I don't know well enough what is going on, so go get an ADHD assessment. And an ADHD assessment, an official ADHD assessment, is a psychological evaluation, and it is pretty long, it's pretty intense, it's pretty involved, and it's completed by a psychologist. It usually includes an IQ test and then some behavioral and social emotional measures to help you understand your child better. You're going to end up with a 25 ish, well, I guess it depends. I would say 10 to 25 page report about your child and where they are on the indicators that I just talked to you about. And the report is really, really useful if you need to pass on specific information about your child's ADHD or other stuff that's going on for them to someone else, such as the school, if you want to document that they have ADHD and you're looking for specific accommodations, or even the SAT board, if you are looking to get specific accommodations for that. And Official ADHD assessments cost out of pocket about $4,000 to $6,000. So they're pretty pricey and they're pretty intense. And while they are the gold standard for an ADHD assessment, I also think that you don't really always need that. And you might as well save a little money and also be a little quicker about the process if really it's more on the simple side. And so to me, a quicker and more cost-effective way of deciding if someone meets criteria for ADHD is just to go to a psychiatrist or go to a psychiatric nurse. In about 2 hours, they will complete a pretty comprehensive interview with you and your child and maybe gather some information from teachers. And they are trained to determine in those 2 hours if someone has ADHD or if they don't. You don't have to go to a psychiatrist just for meds. They are really good diagnosticians. And so you can say, I don't want meds. I just want a professional's opinion on if my child or me has ADHD. But the benefit is that if you're going because you do want meds, they can start prescribing. They can also communicate to your PCP, yes, I think this person has ADHD, you can prescribe, or they can, some of them will even work together to sort of, the psychiatrist can get the child on the right dose and then pass that information on to the PCP, and then they can continue to prescribe that medication because it's simpler. And while in the past, a lot of child psychiatrists were primarily out of pocket, at least in Virginia, there has been a lot more folks taking insurance lately, and there are a lot of more really good psychiatric nurses around. And so for a lot of times, you can get this done through a copay or whatever you have worked out through your insurance provider. Okay, that was a ton of information. I know that you probably have more about what to do if you think that your child has ADHD, but I do think this is a pretty good starting point, and I hope it is useful for you all. Thank you.